Of course, he didn't go that far, but that was the flavor of it. And they get so into the system and buying into the rules of the system and what is seen as strategic within the system and regurgitating what intellectual pygmies in suits on the morning shows, the Sunday shows, tell them that's the way the world needs to be. People are stuck in this reservation, Democrat and Republican. No, Mitt Romney didn't do that because he's a political chameleon. He did that because that's what the big bankers want, is a collectivized society for the general public while they're offshore exempt from it. They want it. Okay, that's why no matter who you get in, this continues. These politicians are all doing things that are unpopular. The point I was getting to as we came to break is Mitt Romney is not in the past promoting gun control, open borders, sanctuary cities, carbon taxes, abortion, because he's doing it to be popular. If you look at all those issues, they're wildly unpopular across the political spectrum at around 70%. Conservatively. They do it because that's what the ruling class wants. That's what the ultra-rich globalists want, who have all basically unified around destroying this country. The reason we're losing our liberties and our freedoms is because the establishment wants to secure their ill-gotten gains. And in the process of it, when revolution comes in this country, they're going to try to steer it into a collectivist system that will destroy the middle class and put regulations on what's left of the free market and shut it down. We are at the very end of America. Classical, domestic, homeland security, police state systems are being put in, and in all the training manuals, it is for the general public, designed for the entire populace, not for rogue terror groups that you're told they're for. It is right out of a textbook what they would set up in a Nazi Germany or a Soviet Union. In occupied areas, Germany, in major population centers that were trusted, was not this controlled. As controlled as we now are. Occupied areas of Poland and Ukraine and Western Russia were. Areas of North Africa were. Areas of France that had heavy resistance. I mean, this is called an internal defense in Pentagon doctrine for when they've occupied a country, Vietnam, how to suppress the public. I played you those internal PSYOP films yesterday on air that have been declassified. And you watch what a martial law internal defense structure is. That's what the homeland is. That's the absorption of America. When you hear homeland, that's the new America absorbing the system. Mitt Romney would be wildly popular with the people if he was pro-gun, anti-government run health care, anti-carbon tax. But he doesn't care. Because he's bought and paid for by the globalist. Herman Cain is trying to sell new taxes as constitutional and conservative. And I told you for 16 years, when they propose the new national sales tax and VAT, they're not going to get rid of the income tax or the payroll tax. So it's really 9999, and then they can jack up all the nines. Why do they have Bill O'Reilly? Why do they have Glenn Beck, Sean Hannity, all of them over the years pushing, well, we got to pay off our debts, cut government and raise new taxes. Can you imagine the IRS over sales taxes now? They've been getting everybody ready for this for decades, making old ladies swipe cards to buy wine or beer. That's what this whole cashless thing's about, is it's going to be graduated depending on your income, how much sales tax you pay. This has all been actuaried out by the Rand Corporation, MIT, and others. That's how I knew it was coming. I've shown you the documents. I've gone over it here on air. I know what their next 10 moves are, and I'm sitting here in horror going, hey, I got their entire battle plan. You might want to listen to me. I know what's going on. I don't know. I told you 9 years ago they were going to set up checkpoints domestically, and the TSA was going to be the new national security force. Then Obama announced it would be a new domestic national security force. Everybody said, how did you know that? Because, and they go, well, it's Obama doing it. Suddenly conservatives that had supported it are suddenly against it because Obama made the announcement. Oh, you watch, when you get a Republican in, they're going to continue all this and then some. And remember, going back more than 10 years before 9/11, all of the internal manuals we've been sent and that we've published over and over again, they never started making national news till 3 years ago. You go back to Road to Terror and other films, I've got the manuals right there. It's never about Arab or Muslim terrorists. It's all flag-waving, gun-owning, red-blooded people who aren't communist. You are the enemy. The subversives are the people that hijack the government, and they're not communist. The real political spectrum is communism at the grassroots to make you dependent, but not calling it communism, and then a corporate fascist system above it directing government to shut down all its competition. That's what should be taught in political science classrooms, and I've had them laugh at me for more than a decade, but now it's catching on. The term that I've always used, crony capitalist, is now caught on, and you bankers are in trouble. We have now identified you. Again, just during the break, I saw Newt Gingrich on Fox television. And they had the headline under him, Newt Gingrich gaining ground after slow start. Newt Gingrich, in fact, I meant to get to this a few weeks ago. I got to dig the book out and to go to the quotes again. He wrote the foreword to two of the Toffler's books back in the 80s, where he calls for the end of American sovereignty and a global government. This is a guy who they put in there to take control of the conservative revolution in 1994. This is a guy who will say a lot of the right things on TV, but was taken from obscurity as a Georgia professor and made the Speaker of the House of Representatives because he is total New World Order. And most people don't even know this. He supported the carbon taxes. Newt Gingrich has supported gun control. Newt Gingrich has supported all sorts of horrible things. And I tell conservatives this, and they look at me like I'm a liar, when they could just type into a search engine, Newt Gingrich, does climate commercial with Nancy Pelosi. I mean, this is the type of stuff that we're dealing with as a society. And Herman Cain running around proposing new taxes, and he headed up the Federal Reserve in Kansas City. You see, they're trying to muddy the waters here to make all of this about either you're against Wall Street, which signifies the free market, or you're against Washington. The Tea Party is against Washington, we're told, and is right-wing, and Occupy Wall Street is leftist and against the free market. Instead, we should be honest and say, okay, Wall Street is just a name of tens of thousands of companies. What about the big mega banks that actually lobby? Let's see how Goldman Sachs and J.P. Morgan and Wells Fargo and Bank of America and Citibank, how are they lobbying? What do they give their money to? And when you go look up who gives money to Handgun Control Incorporated, you can just type in who funds Handgun Control Incorporated, or who funds Metcha or La Raza, or if you type in who funds North American Union Initiative, or you type in who's funding single-payer health care program, or if you type in who's funding every issue you can imagine, it's the big mega banks. The biggest funder across the board, from the Nature Conservancy to the Sierra Club, is Goldman Sachs. Their former presidents and vice presidents run all the groups. Go look it up. These big so-called free market bankers, when you actually dig into it, are funding the subversion of our basic liberties, of private property, of the freedom of mobility, everything. They are the ones driving our government. They are the mega banks on record that literally in Latin America, Africa, Asia, Middle East will spend decades getting their president, their prime minister in, former vice presidents of theirs, literally in 50 or so countries I've looked up, all the big ones they're taking down, They'll have the finance minister, just like in Greece, just like in Ireland, just like in Iceland, just like in Spain, just like in France, just like in the U.S. And it's literally an intelligence group. It's a private mafia that operates with government security clearances and runs everything. They're the ones financing taking your guns. They're the ones financing Animal ID, Premises ID, Food Safety Act, written by Big Agra to shut down your farm and ranch. They are a corporate Borg that leaves nothing unscorched. It is a scorched earth policy of total domination. And then they fund, on record, and come out and endorse Occupy Wall Street a month ago. Adbusters and others on record, George Soros-connected groups, openly 3 months ago put the call out to Occupy Wall Street on the October date, the early October date. I forget the day it started, October 3rd or something. Well-meaning people hear the general call as, we're tired of corruption on Wall Street. They show up, and the operatives show up to try to organize them and control them into a group that they can now aim at what's left of America and play the Tea Party co-opted by Republicans off against Occupy Wall Street that's been co-opted and occupied by the Democrats. All part of the same dialectic. Instead of looking at the hands and looking at the arms, look at the head. Look at the brain that's running it. When you start thinking like that, full spectrum, deep analysis, historical review, understanding of different strategies that are employed against populations in the great game, divide and conquer, balkanization, divide and rule, stratagems by the different apparatchiks that are involved in this, then you will suddenly see it and understand it, and it will be so simple, you're like, that wasn't complex. It's like in the 80s, those paintings that came out where it was find the hidden image. You'd step back and you'd look at it and you'd look again, and as soon as you relaxed, you'd go, oh, it's a dolphin, or it's a man's face, or, it's whatever. As soon as you stepped back, you were able to see it. And it's the same thing here. As soon as you just step back, think outside the box and look, and you'll go, oh, my gosh. And, of course, everybody instinctively says, oh, there's no difference between the parties. They're all controlled, blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, what does that really mean? Well, it means if somebody real comes along, like a Ron Paul, who actually has a perfect constitutional voting record, who never sells out, who isn't a chameleon, who stands out like a yellow school bus in the middle of a field, the whole system, ignores him. When they're forced to cover him, they demonize him and say he can't win because he is a literal antidote to the system. So if you go out and vote for Mitt Romney because you think he's the winner, well, you're just as stupid as the Obama supporters who thought he was going to fix it all. But remember, Mitt Romney, if he wins, is there to sell you out. But as soon as he gets into office, Democrats will attack him, whatever he's doing, and then you will suddenly support him in a tribal rah-rah for your team, and that's how they fool you. Just like Democrats support Obama when Republicans attack him, but the Republicans will generally attack him for things that they were already doing themselves. And at a certain point, they really are attacking each other, but they're only fighting over who gets to be the most powerful in those positions at the pig trough. They're not actually fighting over intellectual issues. Now, again, I know most of the audience understands this, but I would like to hear from Occupied Wall Street people that disagree with me. I'd like to hear from Mitt Romney supporters that disagree with me. I'd like to hear from Herman Cain supporters. I'd like to hear from all you Obama people that got so mad at me when I made the Obama deception and were trying to boycott us and threatening us and dirty tricks and everything else we went through when we exposed exactly what Obama would do, because we know what we're talking about, because we're not in the dark. We're not into being bamboozled. We don't like being gamed and hustled and scammed and suckered and screwed and cheated and robbed and raped and laughed at. We don't think that's funny. I don't want my children growing up in a police state. I want my private property. I want my right to practice my religion, or lack of it, depending on what your view is.